I thank the representative of the Dominican Republic, and I will now make a statement in my national capacity. We welcome the participation in the meeting of the first Vice Minister and Foreign Minister of Serbia, Ivica Dačić. Minister, we share your serious concerns about the situation in Kosovo, which remains turbulent and requires attention from the international community. We also listen closely to the statement from Ms. Haradinaj-Stublu. We thank the Special Representative of the Secretary General Zakir Tanin for his informative briefing on the situation in the area. We think that the UN Interim Administration Mission in Kosovo is the main international presence acting on the basis of Security Council Resolution 1244. We thank you for your impartial views of the situation in the area and also for information on movement towards a settlement of the Kosovan issue. We support your work and we consider it important that you have the necessary wherewithal and human resources to continue your effective work. The European Union has been allocated a mediating function in the dialogue between Belgrade and Pristina in line with a General Assembly resolution. We're convinced that the EU should continue to attempt to achieve implementation of the commitments of both sides, first and foremost by complying with the agreements they've entered into. Nonetheless, there hasn't been much progress thus far. A clear example of Pristina's lack of responsibility or ability to reach an agreement has been the sabotage of the formation of the Serb municipalities in Kosovo. That's gone on for 7.5 years. On the 14th of October, during the course of a meeting with the Special Representative Miroslav Lajcik, Abdullah Hoti once again ruled out the possibility of this association having executive powers, even though this stems from the Brussels Agreements of April 2013. We hope that the EU's mediation with the professional leadership of Mr. Lajcak, as appointed in April 2020, will make some progress and lead to true progress in achieving the settlement of the Kosovo issue. We also note the activation of our American colleagues' work in mediation area. We draw your attention to the document signed on the 4th of September by the parties in Washington. We believe that their implementation should also take place through the facilitation of Belgrade and Pristina in aiming to achieve a détente. But we shouldn't forget that the international legal basis for the Kosovo settlement remains Security Council Resolution 1244. It's important also to remember that nothing has been achieved yet, even it's still just statements. Thus, since 2010, since Mr. Marty's report came out in the Parliamentary Assembly, we've still been waiting for fair international investigation into the serious crimes carried out on the territory of Kosovo. In 2020, we saw a positive step, the beginning of real work of the special chambers on the investigation of the Kosovo Liberation Army. Nonetheless, we're concerned by the ongoing scandals around the court, the leaks of documents, reports of witnesses being silenced, and the use of material for domestic politicking. We insist that all of those necessary are brought to the court and receive the punishment they deserve, regardless of what post they fill now. We've not seen any improvement in the situation from the point of view of security and the rights of the non-Albanian communities. This situation is characterized by continuing intimidation, seizure and vandalism of property, cemeteries, and also buildings of the Serbian Orthodox Church. It's clear that in these conditions, we cannot talk about the return of refugees or IDPs. We should pay particular attention to guaranteeing the protection of Orthodox buildings in Kosovo. On the 16th of June 2020, the first segment of a highway to Montenegro through the territory of the specially protected zone of the Hajdačan monastery was launched. This happened despite what was said in a Kosovo court, as part of which international judges were also working. We'd like to stress that this is not a domestic issue. This monastery is on the list of the UNESCO World Heritage List. We think that the key role should be played here by KFOR and the EU-LEX Rule of Law mission, which have the corresponding mandates. Against this background, talking about Kosovo joining international organizations, including UNESCO, we think would be a mistake and would be fruitless. The area still remains a comfort zone for recruiting different kinds of terrorists. Threats to peace and security in the region are also brought by returning fighters from ISIL. This is a time bomb for security in the region. And there's another unpleasant aspect that requires our constant attention. We are worried by the fact that the Security Council still hasn't received information about any proper penalties for those guilty of seizing and beating members of the UNMIK mission in Zubin Potok on the 28th of May 2019. One of these people was a Russian citizen, Mr. Krasnoshekov. We cannot allow this question to be swept under the carpet. Ignoring such blatant attacks on UN staff has the worst possible effect on their security in any country. We're seeing the attempts of the Kosovo Albanian authorities to push the UN mission out of the area. The mission is having to work in conditions of a de facto boycott by the authorities from Pristina. There's also a serious problem, which is the support by different countries of steps to create a Kosovo army. First and foremost, this contravenes Resolution 1244, exacerbates the situation, and could lead to destabilization of both the area and of the Balkans as a whole. We also were concerned about what we heard about what happened on the 2nd of October 2020 in Tirana, namely the latest joint meeting of the government of Albania with the so-called Kosovo Cabinet of Ministers. We're worried about the thesis put forward there about the need to remove the borders between Albania and Kosovo. These kinds of meetings represent meddling in the domestic affairs of sovereign Serbia, a sovereign or an integral part of which is Kosovo. All of these steps evidence that the problems in the area are not being solved, they're only accumulating. Russia's position has been consistent. We would like to see Belgrade and Pristina achieve a viable, mutually acceptable solution on the basis of Resolution 1244. It should correspond to international law and receive the approval of the Security Council. Any pressure or forcing of other scenarios will not lead to the result that we want. I now resume my functions as President of the Security Council. There are no further speakers on the list. The meeting is adjourned.